thank Dr. Andrea Douglas.
Yeah.
Come on, y'all, give it up for Dr. Andrea Douglas. The Jefferson School Heritage Center for hosting us and being a kind host for this event. We get to bring in this space. This is a new space that they're using, so we got give it up for the new space. Got some great speakers. We're going to be bringing in some more chairs, so not to worry. Our final speaker is here, and so we're going to get started in just a second. Our founder, the visionary for VINEGAR magazine, Mr. Eddie Harris is in the building. Give it up for Mr. Eddie Harris. Cindy's in the building. We saw Cindy's proclamation. Was that Monday? Was that Monday? Yeah. Yep. So come on out, man. Come on. Welcome. So we have a great panel that's going to happen tonight. My name is Brad Davenport. For those of you who don't know, I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for VINEGAR Hills Magazine, and Charles, we got some support from the American Press Institute to do some talks around civic discourse, and a lot of, I don't want to miss anybody because there's a lot of important people here tonight. I see Don in the building and his wife and Miss B. I'm gonna miss somebody, so I'm sorry. Lottie Dottie and everybody. I want to make sure we cover the folks.
Like the party.
Right. So, but we got some support from the American Press Institute to do some talks on civic discourse, and talking to Charles, one of the first things that we wanted to do was talk about this issue of, housing, redevelopment, and real estate in Charlotte. There's a lot of movement, a lot of conversations going on, and oftentimes these conversations are not had at the same time. You'll have like redevelopment over here, but then you'll have real estate over here. We thought, how do we get that conversation happening at the same time? And who are the right people to have that conversation? Charles has been a visionary in kind of putting the panel together and talking to people and getting this all together. So with that said, I want to turn it over to Charles, and he's going to take the lead for this evening. And keep in mind, there's refreshments in the back. There's water, fruit, vegetables. No chicken tonight. My bad. We're gonna have a good time. Really bad. Don't bring the chicken next time. If you don't know already, I'm a fool, so I already am. Now you know. But I'm gonna turn it over to Charles. So let's give it up for Charles. And Charles is gonna lead us today.
Good evening. Thank everybody for coming. How's everybody feeling? This is awesome. This is awesome. And Saran already gave the lowdown introduction on what brings us here tonight. And you all also can see the flyer, and you see the esteemed guests up here, but also yourself. Give it up for yourself, please. Round of applause for yourself, because we want this to be conversation, right? So as he said, we are supported, by good friends here at Jefferson School, as well as the American Press Institute, who introduced this opportunity to be able to tell these stories and to address key issues within our community, right? So this is just one of the many series that you all, and you can feel free to keep sending us more information to us. Our contacts are readily available. But more top discussions. And as he said, this housing, redevelopment, and real estate seem to be the one that comes up the most. That's why we want to kick off the Civic Discourse series with housing, redevelopment, and real estate with the Can I Talk to You C-Ville, right? So let's kind of gauge the audience though. By show of hands, who is involved with a housing association, authority, something to do with supporting housing and its residents, by show of hands. Okay. Developers, who is part of development? Okay, well, all right, and lastly, real estate, whether that's loan officer, realtor, those officers. Okay. All right, good stuff, good stuff. And so the rest of you are citizens, and as you see, like, this is the room to be in. This is where, the folks where decisions get made. So we're gonna, without further ado, we're gonna get into it. And so we have, a couple of questions to kind of kick us off and to, kind of to start the conversation, right? But this is conversational, so there will be time for any questions or comments that you all may have or want to add. So, but just some of the key pointers that we wanted to make sure that we touch to get the conversation started, based on, again, the feedback that we have had. But a quick overview, the panel discussion will explore the challenges and opportunities about housing, redevelopment, and real estate in Charlottesville. Our panelists are experts in the field and will share their insights on the challenges and opportunities facing our community. Saran already introduced me, and so now we're going to do welcome and introductions for our panelists to tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization you represent.
I like recording, Charlie.
So as you see, you have 2 mics there in front of you to share. So let's start on mine. We'll start with Dr. Bellamy and go down. Just an introduction about yourself and the organization you're representing.
What's up, everybody? We have a funeral? What's up, everybody? All right, much better. I think most of us know each other. We can act like we like each other for the most part. I'm Wes Bellamy. Currently serve as the chair of the Charlottesville Redevelopment Housing Authority Board. And our role in our community is ensuring, one, that our citizens and our residents are put first in a litany of other different things, including redevelopment, including ensuring that families are empowered, ensuring that we're good partners here within the community. And then I'm going to take 30 seconds of personal privilege to say something really quickly. I want to give some love to my dear sister, Dr. Andrea Douglas. We all need to be clapping for Dr. Douglas. The phenomenal work, we're not talking about it right now, but the phenomenal work from Plowshares to get that crazy statue melted, standing within the fire, literally in 14 minutes. So I love you for life, you know that. And then, there's gonna be a lot of things that are said, but I just think I like to set the context of the room really quickly from my personal vantage point. And it's another personal privilege. I'm just taking privilege. So, yeah, it's introductions, right. So I remember when Sunshine first came here from Austin, Texas, and people were saying that Garrett Square Friendship Court would never be redeveloped. Now you look at what it is, and it's a phenomenal achievement. I remember when Waki first called me to say, I'm thinking about getting on the board of this organization. You familiar with it? AHIP. Because I want to be able to utilize my skill set as a realtor and being from here within the community to really be able to do some great work. And he's been able to do just that. I remember getting a phone call about, there's this guy that we want to bring up here from Baton Rouge that I think you know. Can you ask your friends to get some more background about him? And we're just gonna bring him up here to kind of see how he likes it and fill it out. And now Mr. Sanders has gone from our deputy city manager and a person who was thinking about staying to being and leading our city as the real city manager. So I just want to set the context in terms of we're making a lot of progress and we should be incredibly proud of the work in which we've done, while also acknowledging that there's a lot of work to do, but to, not saying you all are, but for us to have a conversation again framed around where we're moving towards is of the utmost importance. And Brother Charles, Mr. Harris, I remember the very first magazine article from Vinegar Hill to see now we got Pulitzer Prize winning stuff coming out, and to be able to do this, You know, man, there's been so much progress made within our community that I am incredibly proud of. And I just hope that we can keep that in mind tonight when we have this very strong conversation, but just understand that we've come such a long way in a very short period of time. So thank you. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
How the hell am I supposed to follow that?
Well, you can.
Sunshine Mathon, Executive Director, Piedmont Housing Alliance, been here 6 years. The end of my first week on the job was August 11th, 12th, 2017. And that was the entry point to a community that in some ways, I mean, the pain and the trauma of those 2 days was extreme and impacted everyone here and impacted people in different ways. But it also did something. It had a silver lining, was it tore back the veil of the ability to say, that's not really happening here. That, you know, we don't have a history like that. And it really made it impossible to ignore the history of how we have come to be as a community. How Garrett Square / Friendship Court, now Kindlewood, how it came to be, how it was built on the bones of an existing Black neighborhood that had been taken down during urban renewal. Some of those conversations we couldn't have in the same way before and then after August 2017. It's been an incredible honor and privilege to be moving into this community, to be doing the work, partnering with the residents at Friendship Court, with Ms. Houchins, to take their vision, to listen to their vision and bring them to the table as true co-designers of their future, of their neighborhood. And we're starting to see the real fruits of that progress. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. My name is Waki Wynn. I am a native of Charlottesville. My family goes back to 1700s in this community. My grandfather used to always tell a joke. He said, call me Dean. He said, Dean, we've been here 400 years and we ain't made it past Waynesboro. So this is where I'm from. My family, everyone is here. I've been a realtor in this community for over 2 decades now, and I am currently serving as the board president for an organization called AHIP. AHIP, Albemarle Home Improvement Program. If you're not familiar with it, we go in and help rehab homes. We do emergency repairs for people who are on fixed incomes and that type of thing. And so, you know, when I joined the board and when I talked to Wes, you know, one of the things that I knew within the community is that AHIP needed to repair its reputation in regards to this community. Being someone who was here, and my grandma was 94 years old, and if I don't call somebody back, she'll call my grandma and say, hey, I haven't heard from him. But those families that we represent, I'm well connected to. And I believe that it's AHIP's mission, now that I'm there, and even before me, to, what I like to say, preserve the roots of this community. A lot of times when we talk about, you know, housing and development, it's always new housing. But what about Miss Anderson that's been in her house for 50 years? What about Miss Tinsley that's been in her house for 45 years? What about Miss Johnson that's been there, you know? And sometimes these homes are literally collapsing around people because they are on fixed incomes that cannot maintain. And so what we at AHIP like to do is step in and fill that void. And that's why our reputation and repairing our reputation was so important, because there were people who needed our services that would not reach out to us because they did not trust us. And we needed to reestablish that trust in the community, and I think we're going a long way toward doing that. So, and I will share this with anyone. Anyone here had a negative experience with AHIP, please let me know. I want to know about it because we want to fix it, you know, and that's what we're here to do. So thanks again. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much.
Now, as the only female on the panel. My name is Lisa Herndon, and Dr. Bellamy You may not know me very well, but I am well versed in this community.
There you go, Miss Lisa, you tell her.
I volunteer on multiple levels, on the city level, on the county level, and I show up where I know that there is a need. I am the current president of the Charlottesville Area Association of Builders, and I am the first person of color to ever hold that position. I am here and I want to make sure that we show up in places where we have never showed up before, to give the education, to give the access to home ownership. And if people are not ready, making sure that we have the expertise to get them ready to where they need to be. There are many people in this audience that know I have been on boards, I have served, and I'm normally the one that's causing the most problems because I am saying the things in the room that no one else wants to hear because of the history of Charlottesville. And I speak my truth because I represent my community, my culture. I ran these streets as a young kid in Charlottesville with my cousins. I know before houses and big buildings came to block out certain neighborhoods, I know what that was like and I know how that felt when that changed. So I'm here and I want to make a difference. That's why I serve. So if I can ever be of service, please reach out.
So I'll say hello. So good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Sanders. I am your city manager, and I always say it that way because I'm you. I've been in this job since August 1st, been with the city organization for 2 years. As Wes said, he was a private investigator, did a background check.
Barely passed.
You always have to do that. But I'll just say, just to kick it off so that we can get to the questions and allow you to ask questions as well, that I have done the work on the ground for years. And I come into the city manager's office as a non-traditional individual serving in that capacity. I'm not built in government. I didn't grow up in government. I did not spend many years in government. I actually spent a lot of time harassing the government. So I appreciate those of you who harass me now, but I don't consider it that, honestly. I want to make a difference. I want to make change. I'm all about it. My goal is to be in the gap where people are, because wherever there's a gap in any process, there are people in that gap. That's always the way that I've looked at it. And that is what motivates me to stand in the gap. So I'm interested in figuring out ways to help. I bring a different perspective. I am challenged by my team all the time because they are hearing things differently than they've heard before. I hope that matters in the long run. And I am talking to our council probably differently than anyone has ever spoken to them. And I will tell you that I talk to Wes that way, and he doesn't like it. And I remind him that I wish I was here when he was on the council, so it would actually be fun to mess with him. But it's really about what Essence said, telling the truth and being honest about it. I can accept criticism. I have no problem with that. I know who I am, so I'm good with that. But my goal is to do better. And if we have some negative things that we need to share, that's fine.
Awesome. And as Lisa said, she is the only female representative up there. But as you all probably saw in the flyer, our beloved Ms. Joy Johnson was supposed to be here with us, but there was a scheduling conflict. So, speaking of someone who's an activist and an advocate, she actually had to go out of town for her duties of serving the community. So that's why she's not with us. But in true fashion, to show how much she cared, she still sent in her answers and her comments. Right? So for those who may not be familiar with Ms. Joy, just allow me real quick. So she says, my name is Joy Johnson, born in Kingston, Jamaica, and I have been living in public housing since 1983. I am blessed with 4 children, 4 granddaughters, and 3 grandsons. Currently, I serve as the PHAR board chair, which is run by low-income residents to be a voice for public housing residents and represent their interests. So give it up for Ms. Johnson. And as we said, this is, conversational, but, it's one of those hard-hitting topics, but we're not going to leave here just saying we talk, right? Like, that's why we have the people in the room that we have here, because we want decision makers, we want people who put boots to the ground, and I believe that's why everybody's here. People who really take action are in this room tonight. All right, so the first question, we're gonna talk about obstacles and hurdles. All right, so, and, you know, if you have something to chime in on, feel free, you don't feel obligated to answer every question. There's 2 mics, you know, so you can kind of, share the mic between a couple each. But obstacles and hurdles are where we're gonna start. So what are some of the obstacles, pain points, or hurdles in your perspective around housing, redevelopment, and real estate in the Charlottesville region? So what are some of the obstacles, pain points, and hurdles around our topic tonight?
Well, I just gave the market update. Some of you may have seen me on television giving the market update, our third quarter market update. And we are certainly seeing a sluggish market. And if you are in Charlottesville, the median sale price of a home is $464,000. And that is up 15% from this time last year. So that is 100% taking some people out of the homeownership market. And so that by itself is a serious pain point. And add in the interest rates, right? Add in the increase of the interest rates for those homeowners who were able to lock in a 3% interest rate, those days are gone. Those days are gone. But that's the value of making sure you have people or a team around you to help guide you and making sure whether or not this is a right time if you're able to buy, or whether or not you just need to continue to rent. But the interest rates in our inventory, we need more homes on the market. And of course, making sure that those who do want to buy are supported. And if they don't have the financing, where's that gap coming from? Is it down payment assistance? Is it additional subsidies? Those are the types of conversations that we can have, making sure that they have the ability to take advantage of homeownership if that's their desire. How can we get them?
So I think there's a couple of things in which we all can attest to. One, we know that the housing market, not just in Charlottesville, but across the country, is just absolutely bonkers, as some people would say. It is incredibly unaffordable, and it seems as if there's just like not much that we can do. However, I seem to think that there are a couple of things in which we can do in the immediate to help alleviate some of the stresses of folks who we see on the ground. The first point in terms of where I think we see not only pain, but also opportunities for growth is the interconnectivity of realtors and people in the community. So this gentleman right here has been my realtor for both of the homes in which I purchased. And he has been my advisor in terms of, boy, don't you dare try to sell that house right now. I'm gonna smack you myself. Or a person who said, you know what, let's go through this process together to help you figure out how we can get you in a home that's suitable for you at this point in time in your life. So being able for persons on the ground, regardless of how much money you make, being able to be connected to a realtor to let you know what's going on, what is available, what isn't available, and then how you need to position yourself to be able to purchase is of the utmost importance. However, for certain persons within our community, there's just not that interconnectivity. So when you say the pain points, I think there's an opportunity for growth there. When I was on council, one of the things that I was incredibly proud of, and I think it was right before Sunshine came or when he came, the city, which is a program we're still working with. I always say we, but it's really just Sam, because it's y'all now. But in other things, there's a program that the city was working with in terms of assisting and partnering with PHA for first-time homeowners to be able to get down payment assistance. That program's still in existence. When I was on council, we were targeting the Orangedale area to try to get folks to be able to move into that particular community. Now it's a little more loose. You can go and purchase homes in different communities and receive that down payment assistance. So these programs are available, but again, not everyone is quote unquote tapped in to know, okay, I need to go through this program, connect with PHA, get my credit together. They have credit assist stores to be able to get us to where we need to be, and then put myself in position to be able to get there. But we look at, I think of someone who I'm incredibly proud of, our school board elect, Shamor Cooper. Y'all clap it up for Shamor. She's in the back. So Shamor, she might beat me up, but I'm gonna say this. Shamor was a partner with Habitat, being able to get a home there, put in some sweat equity, if you will, and be able to get a beautiful home. Like there are different programs that may fit different people, but again, it's about us being connected. So yes, we know that the housing market is crazy. We know that there isn't a lot of stock, but that doesn't preclude us from being able to be ready right now so that we don't have to get ready later. That's what we can do in the immediate. And then lastly, yeah, from the housing authority's perspective, and I would say from the city's perspective, if I can speak for the city, we're looking diligently to be able not only to build more stock, accumulate housing as we can, but also be creative in terms of finding different and alternative measures for people to be able to live within our community. These problems, though, didn't start yesterday, and they won't be solved next week. So there is a level of patience that we all have to endure when it comes to being creative, but also finding ways to, again, actually find a solution to this massive issue that's facing all of us across the nation, not just here in Charlottesville.
You said.
Okay. I'll bill you for that later.
I'll take it.
Let's take the next
You
one.
want to keep going, or do you want to jump in here?
If you have something to say regarding it, feel free.
Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly. I'll just say, the point that Lisa made around the need for, and she talked about down payment assistance, talked about subsidy. We are in a point in our country's history, and certainly in Charlottesville, it's worse here than most places, where housing is going to be affordable to the lower end of the income spectrum. The only way we get there is with subsidy. It is fundamental, and that's both on the rental side and the home ownership side. There is no way to do it other than that. Now, you can't do it with just subsidy. You have to have the right zoning in place, hence the rezoning that we're going about in the city right now. You have to have a number of other factors. You have to have the folks ready to buy, that housing counseling that has to happen to get folks ready. That can oftentimes take years, frankly, and that's partially credit repair, that's partially building savings, that's partially, getting to a stable income. Transitioning from being a renter to being a homeowner is a process, and it's the right decision for many people. It's not the right decision for everybody, but we in Charlottesville in particular, and this is reflected in Albemarle County and the urban ring too. The homeownership rate is lower here than it is in most places in the country. So the homeownership rate in general of the nation, and initially it's around 65 to 70%. Now you break that down by race, and it gets a very different set of numbers. And so the homeownership rate for white families nationwide is closer to the high end, the 70% end, and for Black families, it's somewhere in the 45 to 50% range.
To the 60s rate back in 1960.
That's right, exactly. We have hardly made any progress at all, if in fact we've even gone backwards at a national level. And in Charlottesville, the homeownership rate for Black families is 24%. At least that's the data from a couple of years ago. Now the homeownership rate for white families in Charlottesville is also lower than the national average, but it's still a 24% homeownership rate for Black families is abysmal. Right. And the only way we start to undo that past harm is to invest in that, invest in the people, invest in the opportunities, and that requires subsidy, that requires capacity building. And as an organization, that's part of what we are focused on. Shamor is actually part of our team now. Tasia is part of our team. And we're highly focused on trying to figure out ways to bridge that gap into the future.
It's something what we had known. It was mentioned earlier about how the main neighborhood that you manage, Piedmont now, whenever redevelopment would come through, and not just that neighborhood, but a lot of neighborhoods, like that's some sore spot. Like there's a lot of fear when that word redevelopment turns into gentrification. It turns into a lot of different terminology. So talk about the obstacles or pain points building that level of trust for you to be able to do the good work that your team has done in the face of a lot of having to overcome a lot of the past wrongs that were done.
Every day, all day. Every day we got to rebuild trust. Every day we have to show up. Every day we have to not just invite people to the table, but give people the ability to say what the table is. Who's going to be sitting around that table. It is hard work. It requires humility. It requires education, because for folks to be around the table, it's not just about being able to raise your hand and say what you want. You have the folks who are around that table have to understand what's possible, what the leverage points are, what the opportunities for transformation are, and that can only happen when folks are exposed to education around finances, education around urban planning, education around what happens in other communities. Like, for example, we took a trip up to Northern Virginia. This is now, I think it's 3 years ago, Ms. Houchins, 3 or 4 years ago. And we went up to Northern Virginia to see what developments are like, what development is like up there, because there are some models up there that we don't have in Charlottesville that we need to be thinking about. And we needed the residents to have that full experience before they could come to the table and make meaningful decisions that were informed by the opportunities. But every day, we still make mistakes, we still misstep, and we got to come back and rebuild trust over and over and over again.
Yeah,
So I'm not gonna skip out on answering the question.
Oh,
How about
Okay.
that? Let me play. So this is I'm learning. This is a valuable moment for me, because I'm definitely interested in what you all come to the mic and say as well. But let me just say that I want to make sure that you leave this room not angry, upset, and mad. I want to be positive, because we got to continue to have the energy to do the work that needs to be done. Because this can be depressing when you hear statistics and you understand that it's complicated, it's hard, it is. But what I want to say, and what I appreciate about what I've seen since being here and what I'm now a part of and what I want to continue to be a part of, is we are in a place, despite all the things that have happened in the past, we are getting it right now, because we're moving on things that other communities are still refusing to do. So that was an obstacle, I would say, that we had at one point. We're not as bad as we used to be, if I can get you to agree with me on that, and we're trying to get better. All the things that we've heard so far about down payment assistance, home improvement programs, all those things are important, near and dear to my heart. I've been involved in all that work myself. I think from a city perspective, if I could give you that moment of what an obstacle is in that regard, because of the seat that I sit in, expectations. There are so many expectations of what we need to accomplish and what we need to achieve. And that's hard to manage. And that's not something that we won't do, but that's hard to manage, in that everything is being identified as a priority. And I think we have to balance that. There is a need to balance that. And I'll speak to what our council just approved: 9 strategic outcome areas and a commitment to JEDA. That's 10 strategic outcome areas. That's a lot. Because when you look at a strategic outcome area, you got to make an investment to make something happen. So if I'm given the charge to then make an investment in 10 things at one time, money only goes so far. We need more money to be able to get as far as we want. But what I have had as a conversation with them is, we can have 10, because I'm not going to tell you you can't have what you want, but I'm going to tell you that I need you to tier that. I need you to determine what is the top priority. And there might be 1 or 2 things there. And then those lower priorities, we're still going to do some things, but we're not going to invest at the same level. So what I have gotten them to acknowledge, because we're already doing it, is affordable housing is number 1. So that's what we have to continue to work on. And we have to do that because of all the things that you just heard. There's going to be more required. Sunshine and I already had a conversation in the back. He's asking for money all the time. He doesn't know how to stop. Everybody's going to continue to stop. Everybody's going to continue to do that. But I'm the one that has to have sobering conversations with everybody. I only have so much. It replenishes itself every year, but I only have so much based on decisions that we make. So part of what we got to make sure that we're doing is, with our various conversations, and helping council prioritize, and prioritize in the right way, so that then the decisions can get made the way they need to be made.
Yeah, I think it's important, though, to not underestimate the commitment from council. $15 million this year, if I'm not mistaken, give or take.
Yeah, 15 this year, and we're headed more like 20 next year.
15 million this year for affordable housing, 20 million next year, which is an incredible amount. When I was on the council, literally through our equity package, we were asking to put $500,000 in the affordable housing fund over 5 years, so $2.5 million. It was like pulling teeth. Now we see individuals move towards having $15 million in 1 year. Like, that is an incredible amount of progress. I remember Delegate Toscano, Dave Toscano, telling me when he was mayor in 1991 that public housing redevelopment will never happen. We've tried it, it's not gonna work. I said, well, you've been trying it since 91. I was born in 86. Like, that says more about you than it does about us. But we plant a seed, and then we see ground being broken and families actually moving into South First Street with team high-speed internet, something else people said would never happen. I remember, like, literally PHA along with CRHA applying for LIHTC credits at the same time, with dreams of us having new development. And now families are literally living there. So when City Manager Sanders makes the point in terms of there's a lot of expectations, or even when Mr. Lewis asked the question, what are the barriers? Helping people to understand that this is, in fact, a marathon and it's not a sprint is of the utmost importance. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to run. And you run at your own pace, which means that some folks may need to have dedicated small circles, like we saw at South First Street, as well as at Friendship Court, and we see PHAR doing tremendous work. We see Ms. Houchins corralling residents in what was then known as Garrett, and people always just don't call it Garrett for whatever reasons, and people corralling and saying, this is what we want our communities to look like, and then actually our communities looking like what they said they were gonna look like. Those are the wins that I feel as if we have to appreciate. And it doesn't mean, again, that we don't have work to do, but this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. But we're gonna win this race. I firmly believe it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let's go.
From AHIP's perspective, when we think about that 24% homeownership number, or whatever the number is in terms of it being low, it's very important that we stop losing homeowners. Nothing has made this problem worse, or nothing upsets me more than to see a house, be sold for 150 and come back 6 months later and it's 550. Like, that's a real thing. At AHIP, I feel like my mission in life is to put the postcard investors out of business. Like, those little postcards that show up at people's houses saying, do you want to sell? Yes. Do you want to, we buy houses and all that. My goal is to make sure that they never pick up a sale in Charlottesville, because that right there has a tremendous impact, not only on just the community, but look at what generational wealth did not get passed down to the next generation, because they couldn't fix up the house. They had to sell it for 40 cents on the dollar. And now Joe Blow, who got a pocket full of cash, rolled in, and now, that house is $550,000. So, like, preserving the roots of this community is the role I see at AHIP, making sure people can stay in their homes. We don't lose people that sell and move to apartment buildings because, the roof is leaking and they can't, it's leaking in their bed and they can't stay there anymore. That's the kind of stuff we gotta fix, because if we could make sure we don't continue to lose homeowners, that really will help increase that number overall.
Thank you. Yeah. We're gonna hasten along, and but as again, if you have something to say, please do. But we're gonna try to keep the announcements within a couple of minutes, and we can try to get. We want first. We want to get to the audience as well.
I do what I want. I ain't lost that much.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like so. Now, that feeds right into the cultural integrity. The way that we ended that question, because what Waki was just mentioning is very predatory. I've had those conversations with folks myself, and it makes me think about one of the leading examples that we have right now with the 10th and Page neighborhood. I don't know if there are any representatives from that neighborhood association here. Raise your hand if it is.
Justin here.
Okay, I just see the 10th and Page neighborhood. Thank y'all for the work that y'all was doing.
What's up, Ms. Howard?
Oh, Ms. Howard is there. Yeah, y'all give it up.
Give it up, Ms. Howard.
Hey, oh, yeah, that's right, yeah, Ms. Beard, Ms. Beard's here.
Ms. Beard?
Yeah, so thank y'all. So the cultural integrity, right? I think that feeds into this. All right, here's the question. How do you think Charlottesville can respect its historical elements of neighborhood demography while at the same time moving forward on a redevelopment agenda? The cultural integrity, how can we respect neighbors in their neighborhood while at the same time having a redevelopment agenda?
So I'm gonna first say that, there's an example of the best way to do this community redevelopment work. And that is the work that Sunshine participated in on Cherry Avenue with water properties. That was a beautiful engagement process. I was proud to see that come together the way that it did, for them to engage the residents to talk about it. And then I was able to sit down with Ms. Howard and talk about how Tenzin Page needed to make sure that they had the exact same opportunity to speak to the developer and explain how they felt about what it is that they want to see happen in their neighborhood. I think it's important for us to ensure that those conversations happen. When I saw the Facebook post of the moment that was had at the church, Ms. Howard was laughing, I see her. I was blown away by what I saw. And it immediately caused me to send an email, and I did. And I said, Mr. Henry, I need to talk to you. And in that conversation, I just expressed to him, I can't make you do it right, but I can tell you that I think you can do better so that it will be right. And we had a conversation, and we're still having that conversation. I also had a kitchen table conversation with the Howard to talk about why it was important for them not to let up. Don't give up. You got to keep working on this, and let's make sure you're specific in what you ask for so that we can try to get that attention paid. That's the example. That's the model of what needs to happen around this whole city, that any developer that wants to do development in this community, and I've begun to say this over and over and over, look at what you saw happen Cherry Avenue. I promise you, you're going to see a version of that on 10th page with their Central project, because if he doesn't listen, I don't have anything else to say to him, and good luck to him. But I hope he does right, and I hope he does better, and I decided it was important for me to at least express if there was concern about it. It was beyond me. We don't have a proposal. There's nothing for me to weigh in on at this moment. But I knew that it was important for him to hear that there are multiple people who are looking at this and saying, dude, you got it wrong, and you need to do better. And he listened. He still doesn't get it, I'll be honest. It's not all the way there yet, but he has agreed to continue to talk to me. I will continue to tell him, because that's what I do. And I feel like we need to make sure that everybody models that kind of effort.
I agree. I echo with what Sam says. Always allowing the community in which you are entering into to have a seat at the table, not just to have a seat at the table, but to show up authentically as who they are and to listen and to make sure that they are part of those decisions, because you're going to have direct impact on that community. So these buildings can pop up, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be successful in those areas if you do not have community buy-in. And hold them accountable. If they say that they're going to do a certain amount of affordable housing or community engagement, track that. That's how you make sure that the next time they come up for approval, whether or not you approve it or not, make them accountable, hold them accountable. Where's the results? How did you truly impact this community? How were they truly engaged? Well, look at their track record. I'm talking to you, Sam.
I would say, echoing what's already been stated, but in some ways an alternative approach. I think it's of the utmost importance of people who are born and raised here to actually become developers, people with ties and shown a commitment to being within this community, for us to pool our resources together to develop our own entities, C-Corps, whether that be C3s, whether that be arms that can simply go out and buy and maintain in a way in which we know will be respectful to the elders and those who are coming behind, is of the utmost importance. I think it is paramount that Black folks specifically pool our resources for us to be able to purchase not only some of the properties, but look at ways in which we can develop entities that will sustain our existence within this community. Because if we don't, we'll be gone. Now, as the chair of the Housing Authority Board, yes, I think it's of the utmost importance that we consistently be able to also provide housing, stock, and resources for our residents, most of which who do not make the kind of money that would allow them to be able to buy here. But I think that's just one fold, like that's one perspective. And we are doing so, and we're going to continue to do so, lock on with PHAR and our partners. But before I'm the chair of the Housing Authority Board, I'm a Black man. And I think Black people here, we have to be able to say that we're going to put our resources together and do what we have to do for us. My favorite speech from Dr. King is when he talked about how nobody else can do this for us. No Johnsonian Civil Rights Bill can do this for us. No Lincolnian Emancipation Proclamation can do this for us. If the Negro is to be free, then he or she must sign with the ink and pen of self-assertive manhood or womanhood their own Declaration and Proclamation of Independence. We have to do what we have to do for us, because there's nobody coming on a silver horse to save us. And as a member of the local government and a staunch supporter of local government, they can't save us either. We're going to have to do what we have to do for us, because it pains me to see the Blackest moment of our city only being at Townsville Park on Sundays when we have the basketball league going. And I say that as the leader of the Townsville League. We have to be able to congregate more than just then and pool our resources to do more now. So I'm looking forward to us doing that moving forward.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, yeah, yes, sir, sorry.
Thanks for that, Dr. Bellamy. I want to suggest something kind of dangerous. Over at Sam. I am. So this is an idea that emerged maybe a couple of months ago at the one of the Housing Advisory Committee meetings. We were talking about the rezoning and how to one of the beauties and opportunities of the rezoning process is that it has the opportunity potentially to dismantle the historically exclusionary, largely white, wealthy neighborhoods in the city of Charlottesville.
Park Street, Lion Street, so forth. Greenbrier, so forth. Okay.
That's right. It's not in and of itself, the rezoning isn't gonna be the solution, but we can't get to a solution without that in place. There's real opportunity there, and there's a lot of resistance that's popping up out of those neighborhoods right now. So holding council accountable and making sure that we get the rezoning passed in a way that's going to be is going to help make that possible is crucial. But there is a flip side to the rezoning as well, is that there is going to be inevitably, we're talking about allowing for more housing on all the old single family lots. That doesn't mean it'll all automatically happen on every lot. You know, some of the lots in Greenbrier, you can't build another house because of the topography or whatever. In some other neighborhoods, you might have too small a lot. You can't do anything there. But you have there's an opportunity in general to increase the housing without tear downs. You can build theoretically on some of those larger lots and just add units, whether it's duplexes, et cetera. Inevitably, we have all seen over the last, well, since forever, increase in taxes, property taxes. For those who are homeowners, that's been growing more and more over time. The upzoning, which will allow for more housing, won't immediately result in increased taxes, because taxes are based on sales of things around you. So you don't see the change until you start to see real estate development starting to change that. This is where the dangerous part comes, which is in those neighborhoods like the 10th and Pages, in the city is now starting to call the core neighborhoods. The proposal that I put forth to the Housing Advisory Committee a couple of months ago is, what if we capture this moment in time before the taxes rise further? We say this is the base tax level. in those neighborhoods. We know the taxes will continue to rise, but as the taxes increase, some of that's going to go into the city coffer. We know that's the case. That's part of what allows Sam to do what he does, and it allows the 15 or 20 million to go into affordable housing. But what if now in this moment of time, we say on those neighborhoods specifically, for 10th and Page, let's use that as an example. For 10th and Page, half of the taxes go into the city coffer. The other half.
Explain the cost for those who don't.
So into the general bucket that the city pays for Parks and Rec, pays for roads, social services, pays for the affordable housing, all those things. Half of those that increase in taxes in the long run goes into the city buckets. The other half gets set aside for use by the neighborhood. And the idea there is that as each of these neighborhoods ideally grows their, working with the city to grow their capacity to understand what they could possibly do with those funds. We talked before about that fundamentally to maintain the cultural integrity, which is the original question, to maintain the cultural integrity of those neighborhoods, it requires resources and it requires power. And if those neighborhoods had power over resources and where those resources go, that's an opportunity for those neighborhoods to self-determine where those tax revenue goes into their neighborhood. Those neighborhoods could say, we want more affordable housing, so we're going to invest in that. And they could say, we want more park space because we don't have enough. We want to invest in that. Whatever those priorities are, give the power to the neighborhoods, give the resources to the neighborhoods to make that change. We know that property taxes are going to increase over time. It always has been the case and will continue to be the case. But this is a moment in time as we get into the rezoning where we can say we're going to give power and agency to those neighborhoods that have been historically had resources extracted from them,
Right. to
reinvest in them, but on the terms that the neighborhoods themselves self-determine.
Man, give it up. That was a lot of games. I think we could try to.
So Matt Slats would love to talk to you because that's essentially participatory budgeting that we tried to get past a few years ago and didn't quite work. But I know he learned that. And Sam has some experience with participatory budgeting, so I don't think he'll be in trouble.
He's not.
He'd probably like that more.
Still chapter 8.
Yeah. So let me catch up too with Ms. Joy chimed in with, and then that will move us into like the last phase of my questions. We'll build up the question and comments to the audience. So in regards to obstacles and hurdles, she said there are several significant obstacles that people face in regard to housing. One of the most prominent is politics, which can greatly impact the availability and affordability of housing options. Classism is another issue that affects access to affordable housing for lower income individuals and families. The rising cost of rental housing and home ownership is also a major obstacle that many people face today, as it can be challenging to find a suitable place to live within their budget, right? And hurdles as well. One of the biggest hurdles in housing redevelopment is finance, and development for folks. It can be challenging to secure funding for clean, stable, and affordable housing, which can be costly to develop and maintain over time. This can create significant challenges for organizations and developers looking to create new housing options in areas in need of redevelopment. Despite this challenge, it's essential to prioritize the development of clean, stable, and affordable housing options to help meet the needs of those who need it most. Finding creative financing solutions and support from community stakeholders can be crucial in overcoming this hurdle. Right? And in regards to cultural integrity, we just talked about, Ms. Johnson says housing is a basic human right that everyone should have access to. However, the history of Black housing is often ignored and buried. It is important to acknowledge that history matters and that we must learn from it to create a better future. Understanding and addressing the systemic barriers that have prevented Black communities from accessing safe, affordable housing, we can work towards a more equitable and just society.
That's right. Let's give it up for Ms. Joy.
I would like to add something. Can you hear me okay? Even with the idea of having the communities decide where to send resources, how is that addressing, and this is just opening it up, how is that addressing the need for homeowners to have the ability to stay in their homes when their property values are going up and they cannot afford the taxes? So we need to also have conversations about tax abatement.
Well,
making sure that those homeowners can truly afford to now stay in those redeveloped neighborhoods where their taxes are now increased because of the market value of those homes.
Yeah, I would say one of the more proud moments of my tenure on council, along with our illustrious mayor, Nakai Walker, who's not here, but shout out to Nakai. We worked together on a tax abatement program with our commissioner, Todd Divers, which essentially now, if you live under a certain income, the city provides resources for you to be able to cover your taxes, or your taxes are frozen at a particular rate. So we have programs to a certain extent like that. I remember we literally went and walked around 10th and Page on a really hot day, and she wanted to knock on every single door, but that's Nakaya, to make sure people knew about this program. But some of that is also a communication problem. Like we don't, like not everyone knows that these programs and these resources are available for you. And then ensuring that people who need it the most are qualified and have access to be able to take an account, especially when you take a part of these programs is of the utmost importance as well. So I absolutely adore and I love your point, well taken. And I think that in addition to, I'm not gonna go to the next question yet, but I will say in addition to, while the city is doing our part, the county is dragging their feet. And the more in which we pack rooms like this, talking about what we, and now I'm gonna say we, what the city needs to do, we're consistently allowing Albemarle County to be let off the hook, who has the land, who has the opportunities to be able to build, but they simply refuse to because they think this is a y'all problem instead of our problem.
Thank you. Yeah, we need this kind of representation in the county, right?
The county has not had a Black person on their board of supervisors since Mr. Charles Martin in 2001, 2002. It is 2023. They have not had a Black person serve on the board of supervisors since then. I want us to just ask the questions to ourselves. How many of us know when the city council meeting is? What day of the month is the city council meeting on?
Monday.
Mondays. What day of the week is the Albemarle Board of Supervisors meeting on? Damn, so 20 people knew about when the city council meeting was, and 1.5 knew about when the Board of Supervisor meeting was. We know about when the city zoning commission meets on those Tuesdays. We show up in droves. We read the agenda. We read the city council agenda. We know what they're going to do. But people who I got respect for, but I'm just gonna say it because y'all know I'm gonna say what I need to say. But Diantha McKeel doesn't have to answer to y'all because we don't show up. And Malik, the other supervisors, they don't answer to y'all because we don't show up. And then if we do show up, it's nowhere near as consistent as it is with the city council meetings. So they hear us for 30 minutes, once every 6 months, and then they ignore. And then they just go on to do what they continue to do. Let's see Matt in the back, him tweet about it, but then they'll just ignore it. They move on. But until we start putting pressure on Albemarle to carry their weight, we're gonna continue to see these issues. They're not doing nearly enough for our communities. If the city is only 10.5 square miles and we're landlocked, and then we're looking at a place literally next door that has thousands of miles of the availability to be able to build and house people, but they consistently tell you just blatantly, we're not doing it because we don't care, and that's y'all issue. And who's the fool for not showing up? Thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Sam, did you have something else? You good? All right, thank you. So, revenue generation and then final thoughts. But first, the revenue generation, I know Waki kind of alluded to this earlier. It's definitely what everybody has to say. But when we think about how housing, redevelopment, and real estate relate to the wealth gap, right? And also, second part of that can be what are the ways the community as a whole can contribute to more Black ownership. So how does this discussion, coincide with the wealth gap that we also face, and what can we all do to create more Black ownership?
Well, we all know that the average Black man, and the best way for them to obtain wealth is through homeownership. That has always been that way. That is why I like this lady, even though y'all saw her coming at me. Because I've heard her consistently talk about homeownership. That's a passion of mine. I have been in the homeownership space for much of my career, teaching people how to buy a house and ultimately just teaching them the steps. Make sure you know the process, because that's the key. We don't tend to find our way there because we don't know how. And then we don't know how to get through the process because the process is very complicated. And no one is willing to slow down enough to make sure it's possible. I can proudly say I've helped thousands of people get into homeownership because I've done it for so long. The reality is that when it becomes so expensive to actually own a house, you just lose all the opportunity to be great at it. And that's what this community is facing. It is very expensive to live here. I know, because I'm trying to now decide, am I going to buy a house or am I going to rent something? Because I have to move into the city before July. And I don't have a problem with what I can afford. That's sad that I still feel like I'm not paying that. And I do say that, I'm not paying that. So that is a problem. That is really, truly identifying the scope of the problem. And I've been saying that for a lot, just trying to help people understand what it feels like. But the importance of homeownership, it is a part of the conversation that I will say I've been a little troubled by in the time that I've been here, that we haven't spent enough time talking about homeownership among the Black population that lives here, because that is important, that we never lose sight that that is our opportunity. It has always been our opportunity. And we have to make sure that there is a real effort to make that possible. It does not mean it comes at the expense of everything else. I'm not suggesting that, and I've gotten my hands wrapped because people thought that's what I was saying. We have to do it all. We need to do ownership, we have to do quality rental, we have to do 60% AMI, we have to do 120% AMI. And you all recently learned that I also care about 0 AMI too. So we've got to do it all. We have to make sure that we can balance all of that. So if the question is, maybe we don't spend as much on some of the other priorities and we spend even more there, then we might be able to find a way to create a new lane of homeownership, because that is how we preserve neighborhoods. That is how we ensure that neighborhoods are diverse. And it is absolutely the opportunity that if you are from here, you can stay here if I can create a path for you to own that is in here. So that's really the complicated work that it is. I love that work. I will always find a way to support it. I will have the conversations with council that I need to have to make sure they don't lose sight of the idea that homeownership has its place. There's a lane for it. We need to figure out how to ensure that it's always there. And because I want to keep Lisa happy, I want to make sure that she hears me say that, because I do believe that it's important and we don't talk enough about it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll jump in for a minute, just say that even though most of the work that we are known for, at least is around Friendship Court, redevelopment, rental, and so forth, and that's a significant focus of the organization moving forward to meet the demand and need for affordable rentals that are in addition to the homeownership side. But we do have a focus on homeownership as well, and that's been growing over the last couple of years in particular. And Tasia in particular, on our team, over the last couple of years, we have focused on, we have a pilot project in the Cville neighborhood with 5 homes that we were able to buy that will fold into the community land trust model. And in those homes will be permanently affordable home ownership. And we've focused intentionally on trying to bring in residents who are from the Cville neighborhood, either currently or have recently been displaced. Those are the priority buyers. As we look at those homes, we're going to sell them once we've done the renovations for in the realm of 150 to 165,000, which compared to 440 or 460 is, that's a remarkable difference. Even so, even with that, this gets back to the readiness of being ready to buy a home. It's still taken folks months, if not years, to get ready to enter that point. One of the things that we've also developed over the last 6 months to a year is what we're calling the BIPOC Homeownership Loan Fund. And it's a small bucket of money per homeowner, but upwards, it was the maximum $8,500 in a historically Black community. That becomes a forgivable loan to help folks either pay off some debt, consolidate some debt, get some down payment together, so that they can bridge that gap between somebody who's ready with their credit score, ready with all the other pieces, but has a couple of the hurdles left to become a homeowner. That's specifically for Black families. And there's a program that's rarely known. Normally fair housing gets utilized as the reason why we can't focus on race as a distinguishing factor around housing. There's a little known but growing awareness around this with a program called a special purpose credit program that's allowable under fair housing law, that it does specifically allow you to target Black or BIPOC homeowners as a mechanism for closing that gap. And so we've been doing a pilot over the last 6 months to deploy those resources. All of this is pilot stage. This is not scale yet. If we want to scale, it goes back to resources. And I'm not just looking at you, Sam.
There you are.
No, I'm not. So the first, we were able to get philanthropically about $1.1 million to allow us to, not as a donation, but as an investment. And we then utilize to buy those 5 homes, to do the renovations, and then once we resell and get the subsidy, then we pay back the investors. And the investors, these are philanthropic folks, so they're willing to take only a 2% return. But that becomes working capital. That allows us to move quickly when a house comes up for sale. It allows us to get in front of the folks who are the postcard folks who are trying to basically extract those homes out of the neighborhoods. We have had early conversations with the Fifield neighborhood, trying to figure out are there ways we can work at the network level, at the neighborhood level. If somebody is looking to maybe look at selling their house, or maybe someone has passed on and the family needs to sell, before it gets to that point, can we figure out a way to have the resources to move rapidly and make sure that home doesn't get lost? Now, I can't do that with $1.1 million. If I want to do that at scale, I got to have 10 times that number to do that kind of work. But we're trying to build that direction. So there is, back to the hope, where there are efforts underway trying to address that, at least on our part. I know there are others doing it too.
Thank you. I'll give it up for Sunshine. We're gonna get back to y'all, so y'all for your final thoughts.
Well, hold on. Yo, I'm gonna make it real quick. These points they're well needed. When I was on council, me and the CAAR, we started something, the Business Equity Fund, get up to $30,000 at a 1% interest rate. Partner with CIC, that's still in existence. It's probably like the most thing I'm most proud of being on council. But listen, yo, homeownership is only one aspect of this. People have to be able to work a job where they can afford the mortgage.
Yep.
So when we say, well, what do we have to do? We have to call UVA and other employers to the carpet and say, you can't just pay people pennies on a dollar for working all these years and then expect them to be able to find somewhere to stay or even magically have the resources to buy in a community where we see housing rates are at enormous prices. It doesn't even make sense. So like, I'm fired up because the county is BSing, UVA is BSing, and all the blame essentially falls on the city. So we collectively are going to have to mobilize ourselves and utilize our resources to hold these entities accountable to be able to enable and empower the people who, quote unquote, some look at the least of these, to have the resources to afford to be here. What good is it for me to be able to give you or move you into a home where you only making $14 an hour and you rubbing pennies and dimes together and you're gonna lose the house in 2 years?
Right.
We gotta be able to do better on that end.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go ahead because I ain't gonna.
No, but that's essentially what, it's for those who know Ms. Joy Johnson, her comment on that, the revenue generation. 1, the developers have too much control. 2, the American dream is just a dream. Until we can pay people a realistic living wage, the gap will continue to be large. And lastly, she said, we have to address classism, racism, and equity. All right. So like I said, want to make sure that you all can chime in with any questions or comments you may have. And then we will come back at the end, hopefully, to where y'all can give final thoughts and your wishes. If you could have a wish, if it could be perfect, like what are our actions that we asking each other to leave here and do? right? Or, like, what is the need that we're marching for from this building? But audience, any questions, comments, anything we missed? Any issue that you came here thinking about that needs to be addressed?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, please, we have a microphone there. Feel free.
I'm sorry. Oh, no, he's going.
Yeah, we have audience like in the middle. So yeah, if you have something, please step up and, let it be known.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate this. Thank you all for putting this together, Sean. First thing, the downtown mall should be renamed Vinegar Hill Mall. I'm gonna keep saying that at every opportunity.
I like that.
Also, Lisa touched on the fact that much of what's going on is just what I refer to as backdoor gentrification. The developers come in, excuse me, Sam, buddy up to the city. You see this big bucket of Benjamins coming in as a tax base. We need to learn to say no. And Nancy Reagan gave us a template. Let's say no to these people until they decide that they're going to do what is really in the best interest of our neighborhoods and our citizens. Otherwise, we see what happened with Chris Henry and the like when they come in and they lie to the community, just blatantly lie about what they're going to do and what's going to happen. So no, I don't believe anything that he says as to what's going to happen with phase 2 and phase 3 and whatever else that the planning commission and city council allows him to put together. Because what happens is we don't just need tax abatement. We need to make sure that these generational homes and these generational families don't get driven out of their homes because of these developments that go up in their neighborhoods. And they've done nothing to lose their homes other than the fact that these things raise the taxes and they can't afford to pay them anymore. So that's where the vision should be. But unless and until we hold these developers' feet to the fire, and we can say no. We've seen other communities that have done so. Right here near us, Orange Planning Commission just said no to a huge development. So the vehicle is there. We don't always have to cuddle up and buddy up with these folks. I know we're looking at wintertime, it's cuddle weather, but we don't need to do that with all of these folks. Those one-night stands don't always work out well when you wake up in the morning. So take the citizens' interest in regard before we look at the bucket of Benjamins that the developers are going to bring in with whatever high-rise, 4-story, 6-story, 10-story development that they want to put up.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Don Gabbard. Lady, we need the applicant. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Cindy Richardson. Thank you for coming here. I came with, Sam said, we're not gonna get angry, we're never gonna be nice. So I took down that vent that I wanted to walk in here with, but I strongly disagree with what you said and what Sunshine said about the beauty and how it came upon Cherry Avenue. I attended 4 of those meetings, and each time the whole room was like, no, make this make sense to us. This does not make sense. How are you gonna put up a 6-story building and that that spews out to Cherry Avenue? Have you seen Cherry Avenue during its busy point? It made no sense. And then someone said, we're gonna direct it up 6th Street. Up 6th Street, have you seen, 6th Street used to have horses go down it. That's how narrow that street is. So I think to make it into a question, please make it make sense. I think what Don said is so true. We have the ability to say, no, this just doesn't make sense here. And as Wes said, the Blackest Sunday in Charlottesville, what is that going to do? Where's that parking going to be? Mm-hmm. That's going to be taken over. We're putting cars and this and IGA, buildings, apartments, a grocery store, music resource center, and twice as nice. All of that traffic. and it's going out on a 2-lane, Cherry Avenue, that and sometimes it spews up to Ridge Street all the way back to 9th. And then it tries to turn on Ridge, but oh no, you've got to wait. So I just wanted to make sense, you know, say no sometimes. And now I find that, and now here's my vent. I said I wasn't going to vent, but my vent is, I was told when I walk out my house, I live on 6th Street, when I walk out my house and turn left, I will soon no longer see sky, trees. I will see a 6-story building. Okay, I understand. I work 80% of my pay is for housing. I work with homeless. So I know what it is. I know the passion about being housed. But I think what you said is so true. We have let Albemarle off too long. I am down with being collective. I am down with whatever we need to do as a collective for us, by us. I think that speaks volumes, what you said. But I wanted to say, when I was in those meetings, I felt disheard. Now I have no trust that if I attend the meeting, attend the zoning meeting, tell them what you want. The whole room said, no, this doesn't make any sense. I wasn't the only one.
Thank you. Can we, if anybody have a rebuttal or comment regarding that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cindy.
So the first design that was put forth had a 6-story footprint. You're right. There was the back end of the site was denser and it was closer up to the single neighborhood. Out of that meeting in particular, and I would disagree a little bit with the assessment that everyone said no. I think it was a mixture of voices that I heard. You may disagree, but I'll put it out there if that's fine. There was a mixture of voices that I heard that there were some folks who, and particularly the folks who lived in the immediate neighborhood or the immediate houses around it, that expressed concern around having taller buildings next to their houses, as you just expressed now. The site, the work that has been done since that point has tried as best it can to move the density further closer to Cherry as opposed to the surrounding neighborhoods, has dropped it down to 4-story to make it more realistic and responsive to the surrounding neighborhoods. But it won't necessarily be what everyone wants. That part I don't know how to answer directly. But I will say that we have worked very, very hard with the Pikeville neighborhood leadership. And in those meetings, we had another meeting recently. There's another meeting on Tuesday, which I'd encourage you to come to.
I got the flyer.
Great. And the goal there, and when we talk, one of the things you talked about was the sort of pressing up of the buildings against Cherry and the sort of tightness. Right now, you know, and we all know that if you walk down Cherry Avenue, that sidewalk is tiny and the traffic zooms by. The sidewalk that's going to go in front of those buildings is going to be somewhere between 16 and 25 feet wide. There will be trees, there will be places to sit and relax, there'll be a new bus stop. Part of the response, the design response, trying to respond to the neighborhood's concerns is around making that a safe space. Now that we can't control the other parts of Cherry and what the sidewalks are like there, but in that section, the goal is for that to be a welcoming environment with some open space, with seating, with trees, and have it feel safe for the first time, because there'll be trees between you and the cars that are going down that road. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be 100% satisfying to you. I'd be glad, on Tuesday, glad to talk further about it.
Thank you.
Let me just also say that, and Ms. Cindy, I appreciate the comment. I will be perfectly honest and say, I have not heard that. I have not heard negative comments about what's proposed on Cherry. I'm just being honest in that moment. I recognize that people have different opinions, and I know that that's going to always be the case. It won't be perfect for everyone. All that I ever I'm talking about me, all that I ever heard was that it was positive. It was a good example of the developer sitting with the resident and talking it through. And that is really what I'm speaking to, that particular participation, that moment of being able to slow down and stop barreling through the process, proposing to do what you want to do, which is what we heard about Dairy Central, and really taking the moment to hear what everyone had to say about what they wanted. That's what I'm speaking to. I wish I had heard that there was dissenting opinion because it would have been more helpful to me. I know when I sat and watched the planning commission consider the matter, that's what they said. They thought it was positive as well. So I only say this, I only express this comment to all of you. We need to make sure that we have to get all the points across and make sure that everybody hears everything, because that is really what council's responsibility is. They have to then make a decision based on all of what they heard. And I assure you, I get their emails, every single one of them. And I did not hear, I didn't hear a broad condemnation of what was being proposed on Cherry. It was always being elevated as this is the right way to do it. Please help 10th and Page get the same result. So I just want to say that.
But I think that, not disagreeing with what you're saying at all, but I think that also speaks to an opportunity. I'm not gonna describe it in a negative sense, but there is an opportunity, and I think many of us can agree that there is a lack of connection from local government, persons who are on council, persons who may quote unquote rep the city, and then people who are within the community on the ground. So then there's a question that also has to be raised to our electeds. How much time are we spending in neighborhoods with everyday people who don't always make it to city council meetings or who cannot go to planning commission meetings? There is a lack of representation, in my personal estimation, of persons who have connections on the ground and people who are currently in the seats. And we've lost something there, in my personal opinion, on council. There was a connectivity between people who were not heard and people who were in the seats putting the X's in the boxes. Right now, there is a void. And I know we just had an election, but we're gonna have to figure out how we build community in terms of us having clear lines of communication with each other so that these voices are represented with trust. Because I don't think that the persons who are currently representing collectively have the level of trust within our communities to be able to speak for us in ways in which our voices are heard. Hell, we don't even see, I'm gonna be candid, we don't even see persons who we should see in places where most of us are. So if you're not with us and then you don't know us, how the hell can you speak for us? So there's a void in that regard that we have to get right. And that is what I think Miss Cindy is speaking to, because by and large, for the people who I know, when Miss Cindy says something, when Uzi says something, so y'all already know what that is. I'm not going out. But when Uzi says something, when Miss Cindy says something, everybody knows. If Kelly goes and puts something that my mama said this on Facebook and she heard A, B, and C, see, some of y'all are looking like, what the hell are you talking about? But then some of y'all are smiling. But if Kelly comes and says, yo, my mom said this happened at the meeting, a bunch of people who don't come in these rooms are gonna be like, well, damn, that happened? Right. There's a lack of connection with them and them that I'm currently hearing and seeing, and we gotta fix that.
Yeah, thank you. So we gotta be respectful of the house. I was told one more audience question. I hope that's cool with y'all. But like, we gotta be respectful of the house. But this is gonna be posted online. So there are comment sections, and this is just the first of a conversation. But I apologize. We run a little long. The people managing the building, unless y'all want to spend it now. And I'm making this is the formal part. But Mr. Tisa, you got something new?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a little bit of privilege.
Okay.
I'm gonna take two because Ms. Gloria has been waiting to just
Okay, we got it.
She can't move to the mic.
We're gonna take her mic. I'm sorry, I didn't see Ms. Gloria if you raised your hand, I'm
We'll
sorry.
have you back to it, and then
Okay, all right, and thank you, Adrian.
Y'all make me forget what I gotta say. I just want to say thank you for tonight and for this conversation and for the collaboration of different people in the room to even talk about it because of your level of specialty. And also hear the collaboration or the conflicts that you all have amongst each other trying to figure it out. One, I want to say that for your audience, we need some definition. We need some definitions of those percentages you're speaking of, and like Westy is stop and say, tell them what they mean. You know, different things. Your audience needs some of that definition, needs those definitions, and as well control the what you call it, abbreviations. Because spell it out, talk about it, you know, so people can understand when. But what I want to speak to is taxes. I want to speak to, like, it was mentioned about the possibility of the taxes being split, where it's going to the city and then part back to the city, back to the neighborhood. You can put it back in the neighborhood, but that doesn't mean the neighborhood is so-called maybe gonna have to come and talk about it and say, what we want to do? How do we want to do this? Do we want to build a sidewalk or a park or what have you? But the point is to keep us in our homes. And I wanted to mention about fixed income. You know, they don't, if a fixed income is talking about people that's retired pretty much, or people that are in a place that, you know, that's what fixed income definition kind of stems from. But if you're working, even I'm working here, if you're working, you have a fixed income too. And therefore you have set your bills and your criteria. And when that leak comes, that stuff is leaking on your bed, like you said, how do you fix that? So that would be the kind of fund that I would say, hey, you go pay this investor, go pay this repair person for me to make sure that I can stay in my home. That's what we need. We need you to keep us in our home. I don't care, I don't know, but trees are beautiful, but I don't need the pretty trees outside. I need somebody to come help me cut down my holly outside that has grown past my house. That is gonna cost me $4,000 to get somebody to climb that tree and get it down. You know, I mean, that's what I need. And because I'm on my fixed income, maybe not retirement fixed income. So I just wanna make sure we always think about, if you're gonna put it in, put the money where it actually belongs and put it back into the people. And if you want us in our houses and you want us not to leave, we need to be able to take care of our repairs. We need to be able to take care of things to keep us in our homes and in our neighborhood. And I just want to honor that and speak to that. So thank you.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Everybody great? Guys good with that?
Before Waki insert the understairs.
No, no,
Y'all take it a minute.
Yeah, we can bring it to you. It has enough cord on it.
All right. Well, anyway, my name is Gloria here, and I have a problem with a lot of things, and I'm just gonna bring up maybe two tonight. And I'm gonna be quick, because I can talk back, hope y'all can hear me. But I'm so concerned about the homeless people. Thank you, Sam, for letting them stay in that park. I had never even understood that there was those many people home. And do you know there are still some, because they didn't have enough room in this town, because people don't participate in parties like this. But our church used to, but no more, not now, because of COVID and whatever. But there are people out there now, still in the street. Winter is coming. What are we gonna do? Because these are some empty, there are some empty buildings in Charlottesville. We can't let these people die, because they're gonna freeze to death. I took and I'll tell you something else y'all might know. You heard me speak of this. I took a young lady down to Salvation Army recently. She has a child. They told her she could stay 2 nights. She was in a room that could lock the door, you know, so I don't see what the problem was, because they are fixing the place where family stay. So what happens there? What I saw in the paper when, you know, after they had to leave the park, they say they found some rooms. But why couldn't this young lady with a child stay there? That's not fair. That's terrible. And you know what I did? I took her to my house. I mean, I'm against I said, that was the thing for me to believe. Because you poured on me, you nothing. Cause I left before, but I worked all my life. Now I broke all the pieces and they work these like a slave. But I'm just making a joke out of that, but really, serious. So people, because they don't have money, they're still human beings. So what kind of plan we have for those kind of people? But maybe one of us someday, but you guys today don't mean you'll have it tomorrow. Because I've seen it happen to people as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. So as we wrap up,
Is always to get sage questions. Ms. Beard, I'll just say to you that, we know we have a homeless crisis in our community. I recognize that we have not done all of the work that needs to be done, which is why I took the action that I took. I knew it wasn't a popular decision. I knew it wasn't going to be an easy decision. It hasn't been. I've heard a lot of things. I didn't like most of what I heard. But what I do know is a lot of attention is now being paid to it differently than it has been before. And I'll be honest and say that was what I was trying to do too. Thank you. And I appreciate that because it is helpful to hear that because I don't get the positive stuff enough. So I'm good with the negative, but I don't hear the positive enough. And sometimes it wears you down and makes you wonder if you do that or not. But I'll say to you that I have not stopped being concerned about our unhoused population. I am still working on the issue and I won't stop working. What I have done is I have engaged with the organizations that are doing this work and saying to them, winter is coming, exactly what you said. And I don't want to see that we have folks out on the street at risk because there should be more that we can do. There is a lot of money in this community. And because there's a lot of money in this community, we really should not have people in that situation. What I made sure of is that these organizations that say they're ready to work with anybody that is in that state, when it gets too cold outside, they should be able to put that somewhere. I'm trying to make sure, prove that to me. And if you don't have what you normally have, then you need to let me know what that is, and we'll make sure that we get it to you so that we don't have that situation. The project out on 29 Premier Circle that has been worked on for a long time, nobody knew until just recently it's stuff. Like it's not quite ready to move, and there's a gap. I've been on the phone with him for the past 2 weeks trying to make sure we get that unstuck so that we can get 80 additional units so that we can get people off the street and in varying stages of housing insecurity. I'm not gonna stop dealing with the issue. It is a hard issue. I know Ms. Sadie will tell you that it is complicated. It is. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of money that could be spent on it and you still not get everyone off the street because not everybody wants to, and you have to accept that. It's been hard for me. I've had to learn that I have to accept that. You probably heard that I'm struggling with it and I'm taking your lead on that. So I'm trying to get better at appreciating that people have the right to make that choice, even though I might feel like I want more and not be a roof over the head. We got a lot of work to do, but I'm just wanting to express to you that we have not lost sight of it. And we'll continue to work on it. And we do have the attention of our council who is still asking me, what are we going to do? What's next? How are we going to do that? And I'm about to ask them for money.
so thank you all. Thank you all. And so, I want to thank all of our panelists, thank all y'all for coming. So here's what we're gonna do. So Vinegar Hill Magazine, and in my humble opinion, this recording is gonna be on our YouTube channel. So what that means is further questions and comments, you can go to either one of our channels and ask your questions. If you want to inbox us, feel free. We will make sure that they get them, and then we will share answers. Okay, is that suitable? All right, thank y'all. Thank y'all very much. I'm going to give it to Saran. Thank y'all for coming, and please be on the lookout as we continue these discussions. Shout out to Angelique Shaw, CEO of our partner at Charlottesville Tomorrow, and my co-host of In My Humble Opinion, Maxilia Robinson. And we already shouted out earlier.
Thanks again for Dr. Andrea Douglas for giving us a little bit of time. All of you who have come on, it seems like this is a very important topic in our community. It seems like there needs to be more discussion. So maybe we need to continue this conversation. I want to thank all of the panelists who came. Charles, he's never gonna take credit, but Charles will be the visionary of this panel and pulling everything together. So Lisa, Waki, Sunshine, Wesley been doing this helicopter on the roof, but just really thank you all for coming out tonight. We're gonna have more discussions. I think the next one we're thinking about is mental health. So that'll probably be our next discussion that we're gonna discuss. So, but thank you all for coming. Also want to thank CAAR. CAAR is gonna be doing some work with us in the coming year. And Lisa is the outgoing president, and they have been president coming in. Tell us your name again.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be new president coming in. So they're gonna be working with us. We're gonna be talking about this housing thing, real estate thing. It's not gonna stop. So we're gonna keep talking about it. But thank you all. I don't know if y'all watched Martin Lawrence. He allowed me to he's got to get to stepping. You gotta go home. But thank you all for coming here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.